Breaking news, Lewis Hamilton will now not be moving to Ferrari in a shocking vitamin D deficient Forza Racing video game player turned pro rockstar Steve of Footage Factory YouTube. A motorcycle track day amateur will be making the transition from bikes to cars.
It was all a dream. And though my Formula One window has closed decades ago, I have the opportunity to race and track cars on the European continent now.
Racing cars here in Europe, making a decision on which car to put on track, as I have a bias for V8 straight-line projectiles. So I look up my American Corvettes for sale. Big V8 power, cheap quality finish, with GM's emphasis on factory production versus bespoke track craftsmanship. Is the Corvette the best bang for the buck? Because if you go ahead and YouTube search 2 words, Corvette Nürburgring, you'll see these front-engine, rear-wheel drive machines passing 911s, but these Porsche fans will know that this is only half the story. These videos are only showing the good side of Corvettes. Because at a quick glance, the Corvette it's a great idea. Mass-produced, push-rod, pickup truck engine, tractor engine, shall we? But should we turn this old man retirement trophy into a track weapon? So that the boys with hot hatches can see what late 90s V8 technology looks like? But before pulling the trigger and adding yet another vehicle to the inventory, let's add some history. Let's add some context to this video.
No, this isn't the first time I've lived in Europe. In the late 1980s, my family relocated to Germany as my dad had a job offer in Europe. Germany for me in the late 80s was a weird place. I mean, typical. I was an American kid, weird smells, weird houses, buildings, the food was different. My dad worked in a corporate building where he would bring me if he stayed late hours, and as a kid I had no clue what my dad did or what his job was. I just knew I'd bring my toys. It was a typical, sterile, boring, bland, white office. Corporate Germany was a strange place with the hard briefcases, the suits, but every so often my dad would bring me to this. I had no idea what was going on as my dad would take me to multiple racetracks around Europe. A lorry, a semi-truck from England would show up and these blokes would pitch a BF Goodrich Racing circus tent in the paddock. These guys were the tire support for the race series. I watched grown men arguing with the car owners about not having the proper stickers on their car. I was so young I couldn't comprehend or appreciate what was going on. My dad told me, don't root for the Ferraris, root for the Porsches, as if I knew what the difference was. As a young American boy, I couldn't grasp how special of a situation this was. The cars were dirty, the stickers were peeling off, they were loud, everyone was in a rush. It was wonderful.
Returning to America skewed my attitude towards cars, being exposed to German race culture, well, German car culture as a whole, all to end up in the States going to school in the late 90s with all the leftover muscle cars from the 60s on up that the parents left to their highly responsible children drivers. I wish someone would make a movie about going to high school in the 90s, the cars, the girls, the lack of technology, which is probably why we got away with most of the stupid shit we did. Skaters versus jocks, domestic versus import, there was nothing like it. And then it all came crashing down.
I was off to war, but before being sent to the sandbox, the military sent me to a security detail working the pits at Sears Point Vintage Racing.
Wait a second, you're telling me that there is road racing just like in Germany, but rather than having track-specific, Porsches, Ferraris, prototype-style Le Mans cars, all cars that I grew up on, you all are racing American V8s on this road track, not a straight-line drag strip? I asked these race car drivers what I needed to participate in such an activity as if I had more than $2 to my name. And 20-odd years later, and I'm now in a position where I could take advantage of this, but it ain't like buying a race car off the showroom. There's a little bit of work involved.
This 68 Mustang, I've had this car for the last 4 years, been replacing components, making it better. I was thinking about getting a real fast car to take on the track, and I got to thinking, why not take this? Why not get this car ready, good enough to hit the track, kill 2 birds? I mean, normally when you take a vehicle and you put it on the track, all it does is diminishes the value. Getting the suspension, rear axle refreshed, drivetrain, engine, transmission, electrical, and driving it up down the road is, a good way to shake it down. But if this thing was strong enough, secure enough to hit the track, this paint job was cheap. It's just primer with one finish coat on it. Getting this thing ready, it has these traction bars, slapper bars, more for the quarter mile traction, get down the quarter mile as fast as you can. Nothing for road racing like I'm going to do at my local racetrack.
Here she is. This is what I am bringing to 2024. And how fast things move, it probably won't be ready until 2025. At least we'll get started, and at least we'll have fun. And at least we'll shake this car down, because in its current situation, I'm not able to shake anything down. Sure, I can test the indicators, the brake lights, the headlights, high beams, so forth. I think getting speed to this car beyond 40 miles an hour can really shake the components down. This is my 68 Mustang. I saved it from a rough life, but the real question is, what kind of life does the future hold for this vehicle? Imagine this 65 Mustang being eligible for class racing in the future, all because it has the proper documentation built around the traveling circus, better categorized as racing in faraway lands across many ponds. You might see this as far-fetched, but crazier ideas have been concocted. How does one become a race car driver professionally, for fun? If you don't have a parent that gets you into the sport go-karting when you're a little kid with the hopes of you being a Formula One driver when you're in your 20s, how do you get into racing when you're in your 40s? What kind of vehicle do you use? Because you're past the stage of go-karting. Some people might disagree with me, but how do you get your car on the track, and what car do you use? Some people might say, go the proper route. Get yourself a Mazda Miata, an MX-5, or a BMW 3 Series, an E36, or get yourself a car that's not overpowered so you can learn yourself the basics. And I understand this method. It's the same for motorcycles. I've had guys pass me on CB500 Hondas while I'm on my 200 horsepower Ducati. The reason that is because that person that passed me understood the basics of racing motorcycles, where here I am on the fastest bike and I didn't, and maybe I still don't. So I wonder, what type of person, what type of race car driver races vintage racing? Are these ex-Formula One, ex-Le Mans Series racers that have aged out of their series and now the class for them is vintage racing? Or are these older gentlemen that have retired from whatever normal occupation they've done and they're starting out with vintage racing because the route of them going to Formula One is, that door has closed. They still want to race. Sure, they can hop in the BMW or Ferrari or some type of Formula car and get training like I'm doing here in the Dubai Autodrome. And for the last 3 years, I've been racing and entering track days with motorcycles, but I'm at a point now where I'd like to graduate into framed or caged, rather, four-wheel cars. And that's basically what the premise of this video is, me brainstorming out loud as I begin the process of pivoting into another race series, race discipline. So here we are, making YouTube videos in the off-season, exploring the different options we can take, because I have two and a half project cars in which I need to get the projects done. I could take all three of these cars because they're GT sport type cars and put them on the track. And I might still do that. I feel like Leonardo da Vinci, where I've started up a project without finishing it. I need to finish these projects before I go out and buy a Corvette and then put that car on the track. Now, these three different cars are two separate Mustangs and a Skyline. I'll get to the Skyline in a second because the Skyline is something I'd also like to put on track. There's actually no car, no project I have right now that can't be a track-worthy vehicle, whether that be a motorcycle, pit bike, Mustang, Skyline, potential Corvette. My first project, 65 Mustang, car still in the States, an original 6-cylinder, 4-lug coupe. And if I had any foresight, I wouldn't have gone all out replacing components. Instead, if I wanted a fast car, could have got a BMW, a Corvette, a modern vehicle, bringing us to the same premise at the earlier part of this video. Instead, I just would have upgraded the spindles or engine swapped the 289 and tracked this vehicle as a vintage car. Now the Mustang has been upgraded beyond every type of race series, except for mod sports in the UK, and this is one of the series that I'm thinking about importing this car to race in. Let's stop for a moment to establish the value of this 65 Mustang straight six coupe. Purchased back in 2018 for $2,800. Of course, we'll never see the return on investment for any aftermarket parts we add to the vehicle. For example, a roughly $10,000 TCI suspension installed. It doesn't add zero value to the vehicle, but it doesn't add $10,000 worth of value to this Mustang. The 351 is still a work in progress as we are still tallying up the total price for that engine. $1,000 wiring that hasn't been installed yet for American Auto Wire. So this car's value in current condition, nothing short of pathetic. The car's value once finished, it does go up. It'll still be a fraction of the total components installed on the car. And for the sake of appraisal, we'll say a quarter of all those parts, the value of all those parts. So go to your classic car show, or any car show for that matter, and you'll find that one owner that always has all of his receipts, a logbook, a binder of what's installed on this vehicle, maybe a mirror underneath underneath this car to show how clean it is. Well, let's take it one step further. If you have that type of vehicle that you could take to the car show with all the logbooks and information, but you have the proof to show on the racetrack, this car, and it's not getting beat up. We're shaking down the components. We're doing track days like I do on my motorcycles right now. And I don't see how the vehicle's value could be diminished if it's cared for and it's ran through its paces on the track. And digressing back to the vehicle at hand, the running vehicle at hand, and just because it's running doesn't make it track worthy. But this is the fork in the road. This is the theme of the video. Do we purchase a new vehicle, ship it over the pond and all the difficulties that come with that? Or do we prepare the vehicle that we already have in hand?
And my goal in this whole spiel is to have fun and build a race car. This isn't about me getting to the top of whatever pinnacle race series I enter. No, I'm just having fun. And the car is the trophy. The trophy is the car in itself. Some of the problems, if I were to spill my beans of the current specific issues that need to be addressed on this Mustang, the 4-speed top-loader transmission is leaking and leaking bad. I guess I can keep refilling the transmission, but setting it out on a track day, I have personal hours-long experience cleaning a racetrack after an oil spill, so not prepping this car would be a good way to piss people off and potentially get me kicked off the track. Moving down the list of things that need to be done, the original engine needs to be pulled and set aside and refreshed for a later date, the current 289 that's in the vehicle, while a period correct 302 with iron heads and hopefully built up so that it can produce enough power to get out of its own way needs to be sourced. And I guess this is a good time to mention CobraAutomotive.com, also a period correct website. It looks like it hasn't been updated since the 90s, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because what this website specializes in is vintage parts that work with vintage racing. As you can see right here, this vintage approved RHS Pro Action small block Ford head is what they use here in verbatim. They're all out vintage road racing engines that make 560 plus horsepower. So this is something I might want to take a look at with building my engine up and still passing the scrutineering test. And suspension is the same. Looks like it's period correct. The only issue now is shipping this out to Europe and not incurring any tariffs or problems or who knows what we could run into.
And as this video draws to an end, as I ask for a subscription, a like, and some positive dialogue in the comments, also I'm not asking for advice unless it comes to specific components on the Mustang, I'll be moving forward talking maybe in my next video about my Skyline and specific upgrades that I'll be doing to that. I might digress back to motorcycles, as in the next week I'll be shipping my motorcycle off to Spain for sunny track days to get out of the dreary UK February, March weather and get some much needed vitamin D. Other than that, I appreciate you watching. This is Footage Factory. I'm going to keep making videos. I'm going to keep pushing with my vehicles. I'm going to keep pushing with motorcycles. And you know what? Just going to enjoy the ride. So thank you. Signing off.